Hello grade 9, welcome back. Mr. Natman back with you, and today we are looking at audience and purpose. Part of refining your topic, and by your topic this means any piece of writing that you undertake, any specific piece, part of refining this includes considering your purpose and audience and understanding how your purpose and audience relate. So let's go in and define those terms. Again, you probably know what the word audience means, but let's talk about it in terms of writing, purpose, and you know what, we'll begin with purpose. So author's purpose. An author's purpose is simply his or her or their reason for writing. Why are you writing this specific piece? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of it? So common purposes include to inform, to give information. Okay, so sometimes a newspaper article is just existing out in the world to give information to people. To instruct or to explain how to do something, to teach. Another common purpose is to persuade or to convince readers to do or believe something. And finally, to entertain, to present humor or other enjoyable material. Now we know there are other authors' purposes as well, to express, to reflect, but in writing to inform and explain, these are kind of the four pieces that you're going to want to touch on. To inform, to give information, obviously. To instruct or to explain the how and the why, very important. To persuade, there's going to be an element of that. We are going to write specifically to persuade, persuasive writing, convincing people exclusively in ELA 9B. We're going to do a whole exploring and deepening double unit on writing to persuade and persuasive writing. So we're not going to dive too deeply into that this time around, but just have that in the back of your head, grade 9, that we are writing often to convince the readers of our point of view, right? And that's true in inform and explain. And to entertain, we are looking at unique ways of presenting information, that is to entertain. As a writer, you should consider the following. So when you sit down to create a piece of writing, and this should change every time you sit down to create a piece of writing, you will think, what do I hope to accomplish? Now, the answers are going to change for every single piece of writing, but this process should be the same. Sorry, I thought I'd clarify. So with every piece of writing you create, you should ask yourself, what do I hope to accomplish with this piece of writing? Not what am I going to accomplish, because we don't know. Until the work is out there in the world and having an effect, we have no idea how it's changing people's thoughts, minds, changing the world. But what do I hope to accomplish? That's a good thing to focus on, because we can choose our language, we can choose our information a lot more selectively when we know what we want to accomplish. What do I want my writing to do? Oh, that's very neat. So we can look at the similarities and differences between what do I hope to accomplish and what do I want my writing to do. We can talk about that for ages, but really, what is the purpose? What do I want this piece of writing to achieve? Do I want it to anger people? Do I want it to kick off a revolution? Do I want my piece of writing to reinforce that my audience knows what they're doing? Just think about that. The opportunities are endless. The questions are so important because they help you narrow that focus and create a really meaningful piece of writing in every circumstance. And finally, how does my purpose affect my writing? So if I am writing to annoy somebody, how is my purpose going to affect my writing? It's really going to change how I approach this piece. Okay, so thinking about purpose is very important because it really drives the piece, the writing piece. And second part of this is intended audience. So the intended audience, intended means, when we think about our intentions, right, we often have good intentions. We might tell a lie with the intention of trying not to hurt someone's feelings, right? We probably will hurt their feelings if we tell a lie, but we didn't necessarily intend to. So intention, we could dig into what intention means. Do a quick Google if you're not sure what intention means. Pause the video now and do make sure you understand that word. But the intended audience means the people the writer has in mind as the readers. Okay, so if you're writing a newspaper article on the decimation of the polar bear population because of climate change, then you're probably going to write that for a specific audience, right? Who are you writing that for? Are you writing this for somebody who lives in the deep, deep jungles of the Amazon and doesn't speak English and has never seen snow or polar bears before? Probably not, right? Maybe they will come across your article one day, but Your intended audience are going to be, adults in the areas that have polar bears or can change the way they live to help that, habitat or whatnot, what have you. So an intended audience will be either a specific person, such as a newspaper editor, a teacher, a parent, a group of people, college students, parents, right? Or the general public, the public at large, the typical, this says American, but we are in Canada, so the typical Canadian adult. You're going to consider your audience before you start reading, because you want to think about these following things, and they'll help you shape that piece, right? They will help you create a better piece of writing because it will be more specific and more tailored to A, your purpose, what you're trying to achieve, and B, your audience, who you're trying to reach, right? So does my audience know me personally? Would they identify me as a type of person? This is very good to consider because it's easy to fall into, well, I'm writing this as a college student. If my audience is an older audience, they might not respect me as much with that I'm a college student, I'm a young person, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I might want to build into my writing a bit more about me and why I'm not just an average college student. I don't know. I'm not a college student. I'm just using the example. Can I identify my audience as a type? That's a good question too. Okay? And again, don't get too pulled into stereotypes and, I have to write like this for this audience. But just think about it, right? How large is my audience? Can I claim any shared experiences, characteristics, attitudes, values, or prejudices with my audience, such as nationality, culture, or gender? This is huge, grade 9. Shared experiences, characteristics, attitudes, values, or prejudices with my audience. Now, that's one huge method for connecting with an audience, is to find that common ground, the thing that you all have in common, and then tell the audience that you also have that in common with them. So attitudes, right? If you're writing a piece on the endangerment of polar bears based on climate change, you're probably going to want to, if you want your audience to react and act, you're probably going to want to tap into the things that it's a Canadian audience, you're going to want to tap into the fact that we all have pride in this land, right, in this place. It doesn't matter our background. It's, some people have lived here for days, weeks, or years, and some people's families have lived here for generations, and we don't even know. But evidence-wise, thousands and thousands of years people have lived in Saskatchewan, and we have evidence of that, even just outside of Saskatoon at Wanaskewin. So we can tap into these things we have in common, and we can try to dive into these shared experiences or even prejudices, right? We all hate winter in Saskatchewan. Not necessarily. I know a lot of people who love winter, but if you're speaking to a Saskatchewan audience and you make a joke about how cold it gets here in the winter, you are going to connect with your audience, right? Do my audience and I have any differences that would present barriers to communication? These are all great questions, grade 9, that you should ask yourself when you're creating writing of any type and want to consider your audience. To connect to your audience, think about what does your audience already know about your topic and what do they need or not need to know about your topic. So instead of maybe writing 2 or 3 paragraphs about what lightning is at the start of a piece on how to avoid getting hit by lightning, most people already have a pretty good grasp of what lightning is, so maybe just 1 or 2 sentences would suffice. But that's up to you thinking about it as a writer and considering your audience. How close is your audience to your topic, emotionally, geographically, culturally? What does your audience expect as far as the format of the final document? Okay? And how will the audience use the final document? All good questions as far as creating what this might look like in the end. Because remember, grade 9, a piece of writing delivered can look anything like anything from a piece of writing on page to a speech, a YouTube video, a PowerPoint presentation, an infographic. Let's look at this little exercise here quickly, grade 9. The purpose behind this specific piece of writing, let's determine. So the whale is the largest living mammal. The largest whales weigh over 150 tons, are 100 feet long, and consume 5 tons of food each day. So the whale is the largest living mammal. That's information. There's no room for debate, right? I could research and fact check that statement, but I'm going to trust it because I don't feel like I'm being misled. The largest whales weigh over 150 tons, are 100 feet long, and consume 5 tons of food each day. This is just, in my mind, information. 100% information. There's no opinion in here, there's no explanation, there's no emotion, really. Let's see. The main purpose of this paragraph is to inform. It provides factual information and a neutral tone. Absolutely. Okay, so let's look at another example. Without the efforts and support of people around the globe, without the efforts and support of people around the globe, the blue whale will continue to be hunted and slaughtered, and therefore become extinct. We need to preserve these beautiful creatures, and it is time that the government became more involved. Now, the first half of that, without the efforts and support of people around the globe, the blue whale will continue to be hunted and slaughtered and therefore become extinct. That's the explain. That's our explain piece. It builds on the information on the last slide, right? It is not just telling us that the blue whale is hunted and slaughtered, period. It's instead saying, without the efforts of people around, if this happens, then this may happen, and then this awful thing can happen, become extinct. We need to preserve these beautiful creatures, right? Now we're getting into some emotional language. We need is persuasive. So we're going to get into that in 9b. But again, see the lines blurring between inform, explain, and maybe convince? We need to preserve these beautiful creatures, and it's time that the government became more involved. That is a statement of the author's opinion, without saying, I think the government needs to become more involved. They're just saying, it is time for the government to become more involved. And although this paragraph is on the same topic of whales, its purpose is to persuade readers to save the whales. Absolutely. Now, does it say that in that paragraph? We need to save the whales. It doesn't say that explicitly. It says we need to preserve these beautiful creatures and it's time that the government became more involved, okay? But it doesn't exclusively say this paragraph is going to be about why we must save the whales, because it's built into the writing. Look at the language and word choice and how these support the purpose. And I think so too. I think that I completely agree. And if we were to look at these two together, I would say this is our inform example. The whale is the largest living mammal. No room for argument. Okay. And then they provided more information to back that up, right? Specific, factual examples that tell us, okay, they're above and beyond other animals. The second part of this is our explain, and taking it even a half a step further, right? This explains why, the how and the why, and then finally it ends with getting the reader involved, right? Getting the reader up off their butt and go, come on, write an email to your government because this is a problem. Before you begin your next writing assignment, grade 9, consider the audience and purpose and how they relate to the particular genre you are writing in. Thank you very much.